Can a Christian organization really require its employees to live by biblical standards of conduct? I'm talking about things like sexual ethics, marriage definitions, or even regular church attendance. Or does the law say that's discrimination? It's a question that keeps a lot of ministry leaders up at night. You want to stay true to your mission, but you also want to stay out of court. Well, friends, the answer is often yes, but the reason why is something called the Ministerial Exception. And recently, a major court case involving World Vision blew the doors wide open on what that actually means for your staff. I'm Pastor G, and today we're going to walk through what the Ministerial Exception is, why the World Vision case is a game changer for your ministry, and how you can protect your organization's spiritual integrity without getting lost in legal weeds, the core issue, not just for pastors. So, let's start with the basics. What exactly is the Ministerial Exception? Now, when you hear minister, you probably think of someone like me, ordained, preaching on Sundays, administering the sacraments. And you'd be right. But in the eyes of the law, specifically under the First Amendment, the term minister is actually much broader. The Ministerial Exception is a legal doctrine that says the government, and that includes the courts, cannot interfere with a religious organization's employment decisions regarding its ministers. Why? Because if the government could tell a church who to hire or fire as their spiritual leaders, the government would essentially be running the church, and we have a separation of church and state to prevent exactly that. Here is the kicker. The courts have ruled that this exception applies beyond just the people with reverend in front of their names. It applies to employees who perform vital religious duties. This was solidified by the Supreme Court in cases like Hosanna Tabor, 2012, and Our Lady of Guadalupe, 2020. But recently, we saw this applied in a way that impacts almost every parachurch organization and nonprofit. The World Vision case study. Let's look at the case of McMahon versus World Vision. This is a crucial one for us to understand. Here's the situation. World Vision, a massive Christian humanitarian organization, rescinded a job offer to a customer service representative. Let's call them a CSR. Why? Because the applicant was in a same-sex marriage, which violated World Vision's biblical standards of conduct regarding marriage. Now, usually denying a job based on sexual orientation would trigger a discrimination lawsuit under Title VII. And that's exactly what happened. The applicant sued. But here is where it gets interesting. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in favor of World Vision in August 2025. They said that even though this employee was a customer service representative, not a pastor, not a Bible teacher, but a CSR, they still fell under the Ministerial Exception. Why? Because the court looked at what the CSR actually did. They weren't just answering phones, they were the voice, face, and heart of the ministry to donors. They were expected to pray with donors. They were expected to share the ministry's spiritual mission. The court concluded that because these employees performed religious functions like prayer and spiritual communication, they were, legally speaking, ministers. Therefore, the government had no right to second-guess World Vision's decision to enforce their conduct standards. Where the collision happens. This brings us to the tension point. We live in a culture that prioritizes anti-discrimination above almost everything else. And that is generally a good thing in the secular marketplace. But for us, our product isn't just clean water or education or Sunday services. Our product is our religious identity. Our mission integrity depends on our people believing and living out the faith we proclaim. The collision happens when a staff member's lifestyle contradicts the ministry's core beliefs. If you don't have the Ministerial Exception, you are often forced to choose between obeying the law and obeying your conscience. But this doctrine recognizes that for a religious organization, personnel is policy. Who you hire determines who you are. Practical takeaways for your ministry. So, knowing this, what should you do differently this week? Here are 3 practical takeaways to protect your ministry's mission. 1. Update your role descriptions. Don't just list Microsoft Excel skills. If a role involves spiritual duties, write them down. Does this person lead devotions? Do they pray with callers? Do they need to articulate the gospel? The World Vision case was won because they could prove the employee was expected to do religious things. If it's not in the job description, a court might not believe it's important. 2. Be consistent with standards. You cannot enforce biblical conduct arbitrarily. If you have a code of conduct, it needs to apply clearly, and you need to be consistent in how you handle violations. 3. Train your supervisors. Your HR team and hiring managers need to understand why we ask about faith. They need to know that we aren't just looking for skills, we are looking for mission alignment. This isn't about being exclusionary, it's about being faithful to the purpose of the organization. The strategy corner, how to talk about this. Now, before we go, I want to talk to you, the leader. How do you package this for your board or your staff without sounding defensive? We recommend a two-voice approach. Think of it as the explainer plus the pastoral response. Don't just send out a memo from a lawyer, that scares people. Instead, host a panel discussion. Get your HR professional, your legal counsel, and you, the pastor or executive director, on stage. The lawyer gives the educational context. Here is our legal right. You give the heart. Here is why we care. We aren't doing this to judge the world. We are doing this to preserve the salt and light of this house. Make it educational, not confrontational. Remind your team that maintaining our Christian identity is actually the most loving thing we can do, because it keeps our witness pure. I know this is heavy stuff, and writing those job descriptions can feel like a headache. To help you out, we've put together a free resource, a mission-aligned job description template. It includes specific language you can use to articulate the spiritual functions of roles in your organization. Now, disclaimer, I am a pastor, not an attorney, and this template is generic. You definitely need to run it by your own local legal counsel to make sure it fits your specific jurisdiction. But it's a great place to start. Click the link in the description to download that today. Keep leading well, keep your mission clear, and I'll see you in the next video. Grace and peace.